Oh my gosh, it's almost the new year.
So
And
excited.
yes, it's time
2018
to
has
pay
been, I feel like it's been a really intense one for a lot of people, both like as a country, but also individually.
Yeah, I think so too. And today we are going to pay homage to the people who have gotten us through this intense year.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think that a lot of times what happens, we get so ready for the new year that we forget to reflect on the past year and we start setting goals, but we forget to reflect.
Yes.
So I think we both are good at setting goals and we've both become good at reflecting and giving the energy to those people who have put us in this direction, kind of propelled us forward. So, how about if we talk a little bit about what some of that, how did we prepare forward?
Yeah. So you brought up such an interesting point, which is that when you are goal oriented and you're driven and you're focused on the future, it can be so easy to kind of lose sight of the headway that you've made. And I know this personally about myself. And so I've developed some systems and some tools that I've become incredibly grateful for. So one of them is I keep a running Excel sheet, and I've shared this with you. And it started out as just a gratitude Excel. So every time I had a moment that I wanted to remember or appreciate or savor, I would enter it into this Excel. And then I started adding additional categories like risks that I took, growth moments, heaven moments, compliments I gave and compliments I received, like a quote that was really standing out to me. And so now, over the course of several years, I've accumulated this incredible documentation of moments. And so, as I was thinking about like what were kind of my defining moments and turning points in 2018, it was really easy to kind of scroll back through that and remember things that I'd completely forgotten about from earlier this year. So that's number
Mm.
one. And then last year, I started a tradition that I want to do onward, where I create a image of all of the mentors, whether they're people who are very close to me that I have a close relationship with, or people from afar, you know, an author, an expert, someone that I am touched at a conference by. And I create an image, which I'll share in the comments with their headshots. Sometimes I'll put a word that kind of summarizes the impact that they've had on me. Right.
Yeah, I saw that. I like that.
Yeah. Or other times I'll just put their name. And it's been a great way in which I can share gratitude with the people who've impacted me, as well as just a great way for me to remember personally, like who was impacting me this year. And it's funny too, because I was even looking at last year, and there are some people who were on my list last year and on my list this year.
I noticed that about my list too. And I
Yeah.
also noticed the opposite, people who were on my list last year totally off. Like, and they were impactful last year, but they like somehow they changed their message or something and we just didn't resonate.
Or we changed. So we got to like a new level of consciousness
Yes.
and
Yep.
awareness, and
Yep.
their
There now.
message was no longer relevant for us. Not saying anything bad about it,
Yeah.
but we're just at a different point in our journey. And
Yep.
even in recognizing that, like that was a moment of appreciation too. Like, wow, that person had such a huge impact on me last year. And you know, within a course of a year, I'm already at a place where I've discovered new mentors who are like helping shine a light on different areas of that topic. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. And I think I shared with you before that I tend to move on from mentors very quickly.
yeah,
And it's in a way it's sort of sad, but in a like you can be grateful for like, oh wow, yay, I'm growing quickly. But in a way it's kind of like, but I don't want to leave this person just yet. But the message is just way too old now. And there's,
yeah.
new messages that I'm getting that are not closing those off, but just saying, okay, that's like kindergarten. Like when you go to high school, you're not thinking about kindergarten.
Yeah. And I was even thinking of one person in particular. His message at the time was extremely helpful. And in looking back now, in having been exposed to other mentors in that area, it feels surface level, grounded in, you know, appearances and power dynamics. and
Yeah.
having the upper hand.
Mm.
And it feels really cool to be able to see that. And again, like that message serves a very important audience and they're getting a lot of value from it, but it's cool
Yeah.
to be like, that message was serving me last year, and now the message that's serving me is like Dr. Shafali's or like Jay Shetty's, or people who, consciousness is just on a much deeper scale. So
Yeah.
that felt super cool in itself. So I've kind of teased a couple of the people who are on my list. Do you want to share someone on yours?
Yeah. So just to go on the story of like losing people, I actually met the person who made me want to become a speaker, like made me want to do this work, this self-development work. When I was 15, I saw him speak and I was like, absolutely, this is the work that I want to do. But he told a story about conflict he had in his family. And I was like, oh, shoot, he's still where he was when I was 15.
Hmm. So he told this story, meaning it was a recent story, but it was still
Right now, happening absolutely right now with with no forgiveness,
yeah,
no
gotcha.
grace. And I was like, oh wow, like you graduated from people too. And my aunt, who's not on my list because she told me this when I was 19 years old, and she said, when I graduated from high school, she said, you know how you just graduated from high school? I was like, yeah. What are you talking about, lady? She's like, well, you graduate from people too. Are you thinking about going back to high school? I said, no, don't think about going back to those people when you graduate from them.
Oh, that's really powerful.
Yep.
That's
Mm-hmm.
really powerful because I think it's so, especially people who are extremely loyal or empathetic, feel this sense of obligation to sustain relationships just because of their longevity. I've
Yep.
known this person for 25 years. Like, why would I kind of depart from that?
Yep.
But it's a great point. This idea of like, you wouldn't go back to high school. Why
Mm-hmm.
would you go back to a friendship that's operating at, that high school level, so to speak?
Yes, exactly. And so a couple of people who are on my list for weird things. And one guy, his name is Jay Money, and he's a financial blogger.
Cool.
And I met him, and I think I've told this story before, but I met him, and one of the things I do with my friends, this, we do this for each other. It's like we send our goals. We say what we're working
Yeah.
towards.
Yeah.
Well, I did that to like christen him as my friend, right? And I sent him probably like 3 or 4 goals, and he sent me one back. And I was like, he wants to have fun this year. That was
Yeah.
2018. And I was like, oh, yeah, that too. I want to have fun too.
Yeah.
But
It's
that
like,
actually goes into the lesson that I learned for the biggest lesson that I learned for this year too. And
which,
that is that I've got to do more heart work and less hard work.
uh-huh. I thought
Yeah.
you were going to say head work, but I guess they're kind of similar.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, because on my live the other day, I mentioned that. So head work as a therapist, is one thing, but for me, head work, I'm in my head a lot.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
where I work. I work from my head.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm in my head too much, that's when I'm out of the hard work. I'm not loving it. I'm not in the flow.
Yeah.
But when I'm in my heart, like my gut, then I'm in the flow and I'm loving it and it's a good time and it is fun. So whenever I start to get in my head or whenever I'm forcing myself to do something, I have to stop. It's just like, nope, stop right now. Like, stop. You're not in your heart. So this is not good for you.
Yeah. This is a little bit unrelated, but it made me think of it.
Mhm.
So there were a couple people, just because of the layout of my influencers list this year, I wasn't able to fit them on, but they really have had a positive impact. And
Oh,
one of them is Mel Robbins, who
oh, okay.
a lot of our listeners will have heard of. She has a viral TED Talk. She's got a book. And one of her quotes is that self-doubt isn't inherent, it's learned, and it's a habit. We start doubting ourselves, and then that just becomes a script that we go to. And so just as you can learn it, you can unlearn it.
Yes.
And that was really profound. She also has a quote, if you have a problem that can be solved with an action, it's not a problem, which I like.
I do. I like that too.
But going
And
back
it's
to the,
not, what she's saying is what hypnotherapy does, basically. Because what we do in hypnotherapy is when we find how you got into that
yeah,
pattern, we just get you out of that pattern kind of the same way. We're just like reverse the pattern, basically.
yeah,
That's what hypnotherapy
you're
is.
talking about
Find
this.
those words. So say self-doubt, you told yourself, I'm not good enough, right?
Mhm.
We find what the opposite of that is for you. And then we help implant that, like that new program using that word that means the opposite of not good enough.
Yeah. What's the difference do you find between EMDR and hypnotherapy? And because I know with EMDR, it's similar, like you go to a limiting story and then you
Mhm.
replace that story with something more neutral or positive. And it sounds like hypnotherapy is similar. What's
Yeah.
your understanding
So
of?
the difference is the dual. So EMDR works on bilateral, so eye movement, but we don't do that in hypnotherapy anymore. That, I mean, that's the old hypnotherapy way, but we don't do that
Yeah,
eye movement anymore. What we do is go down to your subconscious mind. So I do brain-based hypnotherapy. Some people do heart-based, but I do brain-based. So we're going past your conscious brain and into your subconscious brain where that information lives, which runs like a jukebox, just always running, and
yeah,
it's playing the song it wants to play. But we've got to get you to decide what song you want it to play. So instead of having you release, because EMDR is having you release that attachment to the story
yeah,
by the eye movement,
yeah,
by the rapid eye movement. And hypnotherapy is having you release that story by changing it. So sometimes I may have, instead of them going down into their subconscious, I may have their eyes open and I may have them see it on the screen and then
yeah.
they play a different ending.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so the story is complete now because that's why we run these programs, is because the story just keeps running because we never got a chance to tell our father that we were angry at him, or we never got a chance to tell our mother that she disappointed us, or we felt abandoned, whatever. So we never got to tell that story, so it's still playing and the brain is just going to play it until we get a chance. So what
Yeah,
happens? You meet people who let you down, so you get a chance to finally close that loop, but you
yeah,
still don't do it. You walk
yeah,
away from those, you
yeah,
just feel let down. Yeah.
yeah. It's cool that you mentioned that because I'm sure you've heard this, nothing triggers us unless there's some element of wound underneath the surface.
Yes.
And so those triggering moments are actually an incredible blessing. They're shining a light on an area of yourself that needs healing.
Yes.
But yet so many of us, instead of seeing it as a gift and working with a therapist or a coach or whomever to identify what's beneath the surface and heal it, we run from the feelings, addiction or, whatever your drug of choice might be. Uh,
Right.
and then we often get really mad at the person who triggered us versus,
Yep.
you know, feeling grateful in a way because they're helping us get closer to who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. In my course on Insight Timer, Control the Controllable, one of the lessons, and actually one of the two that I get the most questions about. So forgiveness, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I get a lot of questions around forgiveness. People are always like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then on the gratitude, that's the second one I get the most questions for. But in the gratitude section, I was like, so we all know about gratitude, but I want you to think about it a different way. I want you to be grateful for those triggers, those lessons that are coming to you, because it's like, oh yes, I get a chance to try this lesson again. I'm going to
Right.
get it this time.
Right.
And people were like, what are you talking about, Kanae? Like, no, I cannot be grateful for my challenges. I cannot. I'm like, yes, you can. You better.
So it's really hard in the moment too.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit that. But once you get some space, and I think you once you plug into some communities of people that are similarly committed to doing the hard work and
Mhm.
self-aware and to not running away, it just gets that much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to mention Marissa Peer because she is not my hypnotherapy mentor, but she is a hypnotherapist that I really admire. My hypnotherapy mentor is named Elizabeth Micas, and that's who trained me in hypnotherapy. She is brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so cool and down to earth. And what I learned in the last couple years is that there are some people who have been doing this work for many years, who are still humble enough to listen to me or, embrace what I bring. Because as a newbie, I mean, I've been doing hypnotherapy for 2 years now, but as a newbie, you would think that they're like, oh, yeah, we don't need to know any ideas you have. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm good. Right. But I've met these women who are like, oh, tell me what you did. And even my therapist, I have a supervising therapist in my office, and there was a couple that I worked with, and I talk about them all the time, where the man expectations was his thing. And he got that lesson and
Yeah.
it completely changed his life. And
Yeah.
my supervising therapist was like, I cannot believe like how you cleared that, like in just 1 year of being a hypnotherapist, that not everybody can do that. And I was like blown away that she gave me that much like, praise.
Yeah. I think that really gifted wisdom teachers or really evolved wisdom teachers, and actually one of the influencers probably at the very top of my list embodies this, Dr. Shafali Sabari.
Mm.
She doesn't differentiate if you're at a certain level on your consciousness journey, and let's say there's someone else who's years behind you, she doesn't say like better or worse. In fact, her whole message about conscious parenting is that so often parents will kind of look down and at their kids and see them as needing molding, needing their guidance in order to become the best version of themselves. Whereas Dr. Shafali says parents need their kids to bring awareness to all of their junk to become the best version of themselves.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so
I see that in the office a lot.
Yeah. So I think what your mentor is doing is she realizes like just because she's farther along doesn't mean that there isn't a ton of stuff that you can teach her still.
Yeah.
You're more nascent in your journey.
And it's so admirable, it's just like I would love to be that kind of wise person, 20 years from now, as I meet somebody just starting out in the business and, give them that grace and learn from them as much as they're learning from me. Like that to me is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at it from like a more technical standpoint, it's like the curse of knowledge is something that is mentioned with experts, is they get so immersed in their craft that oftentimes like the novice or the beginner will have an advantage because they're coming at it with a much more open mind.
Yes.
Even in the creative space, they say 95% of creative ideas happen when you're not doing the task. They happen in that downtime or in that in-between time, when you're in the shower going for a run or whatever it might be. So,
I always say the shower is my second meditation.
Do you have one of those whiteboards where you can write down your ideas in the shower?
I don't, but I should.
That would be a good one. That'd be a good one.
They always come. They always seem to come. It just never, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, that's so good. Right?
Yeah. Shower notepad.
Yes.
Okay.
I brought up Insight Timer, and I want to kind of tell somebody that's on, I want to give this man so much, like, I don't even know what I want to give him, but Insight Timer was on my list of accomplishments for this year, but the way that I got there was because I met one of the Insight Timer meditation publishers or teachers.
Maybe tell people what Insight Timer is in case they,
Okay, great. Yes, so Insight Timer is a free meditation app, and it's the app that I used to do my meditation. However, I recently this year became a meditation teacher on the Insight Timer app. So that was a big accomplishment. I didn't even see it coming. It wasn't even on my list of goals.
Yeah.
It just hit me and I ran with it.
Yeah.
How it hit me though is I was listening to one of my favorite teachers. His name is Tom Evans. And something that he said reminded me of the work that I do. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm a meditation teacher, basically. That's how I realized that I was a meditation teacher, because I teach my clients one-on-one, but not, in a group.
Right.
So, yeah. So I just reached out to him and said, hey, how do you become a meditation teacher? So he and I started this dialogue back and forth, and then he felt comfortable enough to refer me to Insight Timer, and they accepted me. And I sent them my proposal, and they were like, "Absolutely, we accept you, and we like the
Yeah.
work you be doing." And so that relationship that I built with Tom, and he is an incredible teacher, like just incredible, like the things that he knows. And I have a podcast coming up with him on January 16th, but the stuff
Awesome.
that he knows,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you know this? Like, he's 60 something. He's not like a 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wise beyond his years. But that's just somebody that this year made a big impact on me.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the power of what you just mentioned, which is so oftentimes, especially when we have someone that we look up to, we put them on a pedestal and we don't make the phone call, and we don't, share the praise and the accolades that we feel for them. And if we have a really cool, mutually beneficial partnership idea, we don't reach out and suggest it. And I feel like if there's one theme from this year, it's been having the courage to make the call or to send the email. A great example is getting Jay Shetty, who is on my 2018 influencers list. He's a former monk turned viral content creator, and his content it's very conscious. It's about relationships and career and facing fears and compare and despair moments on social media, and all of the love, relationships, all of the juicy things in life.
Yeah.
And I work in an area of marketing where he would be a great fit for a presenter. And I remember writing out, it was a document on my computer, and the title was Leia's like dream speaker list. And he was at the very top. And I think sometimes when we put someone at the top of our list, that almost makes us less likely to reach out. But I just went for it. And it ended up working out. And that was such a meaningful moment this year. Do you have any transformational moments where, like, when you reflect back on 2018, like that would be a turning point for you?
Well, I have two, but before I go there, I want to point out something that you said, and that is, so you wrote the list, and a lot of people aren't writing the list.
Okay.
But there's so much power in writing down and like visualize it to a point where there's a moment where your conscious brain is not even seeing that note anymore, but your subconscious brain is. And remember, the subconscious brain is what attracts the things to us. And it's like, okay, Jay Shetty, we got to put it, we have to make it so Leia has to reach out to Jay Shetty. And that's what the universe was creating for you. So I do want to mention that manifestation.
Yeah. And actually, I love going back to Dr. Shefali because she's just had such a profound impact on me since I've come across her work. But she actually has a course. She has several courses. The one I did this year is called The Year of the Awakened Heart, which I could not recommend more. But her follow-up course is called The Year of Manifestation. And it's all about, she ended up being Oprah's like #1 parenting expert.
Okay.
One of her top, Oprah Super Soul series and top rated guests and all of that. And she talks about the misconceptions about manifestation and actually what it is.
Yes. She does one of the best jobs. I think I told you that about explaining manifestation. Yeah.
So if anyone is wrestling with that area, I would highly encourage you to check out her courses. She has ones that are smaller in terms of both like the time commitment, the length of time that they run over, as well as the dollar investment. And then she has ones that are a year long. And she also offers meditations that accompany each lesson of her year-long courses as well. So she's running some great specials this month in December for the holidays. So if you're looking to send your life in a new direction in 2019, she's someone whose courses I recommend highly. And then also another one of my influencers, Jesse Itzler, has a course. He has several different types of courses, but the one that I did in 2018 that was really impactful is called Build Your Life Resume. Jesse, we've done a couple different shows on him. He's a very successful entrepreneur, but he also is just a really interesting personality as well. He's been a rapper and a break dancer, an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, and he also does really incredible physical challenges. So he brings all of those different interest areas into his course. And he also happens to be married to Sarah Blakely, the billionaire co-founder of Spanx, or I'm sorry, billionaire founder of Spanx. And so he brings his wife Sarah on for different modules as well.
Oh, okay. I knew that.
Yeah, and it was just a huge highlight of my year. It lasts over 8 weeks, and the lessons are profound, but also just the energy and passion he brings to it. His energy really impacted me while I was doing the course. So
yeah, you were on 10. Yeah, and I think like that time, whenever that happened, was that like July? When did that happen?
Yeah, it was around the summertime.
Yeah, it was like from that moment until this moment, you have been like in like education mode. And when I say education, I clearly I don't mean math and science and
Yeah,
English.
learning.
Like
Yeah.
you have just been like learn, 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 learn. Every single day has been.
Well, one of the things that's really notable and special about Jesse is he does anything to get his foot in the door. So all of those moments that I think would stop most people out of fear or, not wanting to, I guess, probably put themselves out there and really be seen, he like jumps at those opportunities. And there are a couple really interesting stories he has. I've shared them on this podcast series. So one has to do with his private jet company and getting his first investors. One actually has to do with him meeting Sarah Blakely, his now wife, and kind of a creative scheme he used to do that. One was about landing his first record deal and impersonating this like African-American rapper. He's like a skinny white kid from Jersey. So he's, that's one of the things that I really admire about him is he believes so deeply in what he's doing that he puts all of that passion and energy into getting in front of the right people. And I definitely can relate to the passion for the idea. And I think I tend to be, and this is probably like a more feminine quality, is like, don't want to ruffle feathers, like don't want to, just don't want to maybe be in the spotlight or in the limelight. So I've definitely learned, I've picked up from him, just kind of that attitude and that mentality, which has helped a lot.
Kahunas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will take that and answer the question about like the biggest moments, because one was my message and that was it, confidence. That's something that I was born with, but we're all born with. And you kind of alluded to earlier that we give it away. Like we learn by habit to second guess ourselves, and we allow people to chip away at it. Well, for most of my life, I didn't. It was like a small portion of my life that I did see myself do that. But I realized that I had something that most people are looking for. Now, I always thought I was confident, but this year I realized just how confident. And what I really realized is how much confidence people need. I didn't realize that because my mom talks about confidence like it's just like water, that I didn't realize that there were so many people who didn't have it. So it became sort of my message, like confidence, confidence, confidence. I got the t-shirt line and I have the confidence is contagious. And it's like one of my quotes that I say pretty regularly, but I made it my message mainly because I realized it's something that I absolutely can help people with.
Yeah.
Because one, they already have it. It's just covered up by fear. But confidence is there. If you get the fear out the way, then you'll be confident. Because people jokingly are confident sometimes. They accidentally are confident. And then they're like, oh, did I just say that? I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. They kind of take it back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll also add that confidence is not something that you either have or you don't. I find that it manifests in certain areas of your life, but can be absent in others. So you can have someone who crushes it in their career, is amazing on the field, athletically. And then when it comes to their relationships, are doing everything that would communicate to someone else that they don't value themselves. And so what's interesting about it is it needs to be cultivated in different areas, and it might show up super strong in one and less so in another. And you might have an experience that shakes you in a certain area, like a really bad breakup or a really bad work failure. So you might have it and then it disappears and you need to build it back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I learned to help people get there, is that if I could show them that they are confident,
Mm-hmm.
show them what confidence looks like, then how do we get there? Then we just scoot it over to this other area.
Mm-hmm.
And people usually embrace that idea. So that confidence was, learning my message. I think really honing in on my message, and that was Donald Miller or Don Miller. And he's not necessarily on my list, but reading his book did help me kind of hone in on my message. And then Rocket Fuel was another book that I read that helped me understand what I needed in my business. So I hired an integrator, because based on the book Rocket Fuel, I am a visionary, and the book says a visionary needs an integrator. And so I did hire an integrator, which is a huge step for me in this business, which kind of goes back to the lesson for this year, is to be the CEO of Presidential Lifestyle, not the hypnotherapist, not the financial therapist, but the CEO of Presidential Lifestyle. And that was a big change for me, because I was so used to working in the business, being the main worker and not necessarily looking at running the company. So I made a big shift there. One of the biggest shifts is really shining here, right here, is I decided to let my gray hair grow out. So I kind of cheated though, because I colored the part that already grew out and was black. I'm just gonna color that gray, and then I'm letting the rest of it grow out. And that was a big step, because I just felt like, you know what, first of all, I have this message on authenticity, and coloring your hair kind of isn't all that authentic. It's not authentic. Now, you can own it. You can say, I'm authentically coloring my hair, and I'm going to be unapologetic about that, because this is the part of me that I want to cover. But I didn't want to do that anymore. I was like, you know what? It's first of all, gray hair is powerful. So you can try and color it in just a few short weeks. So it became this big fight, and I was like, you know what, I want grace and ease, including my hair. I want my hair to be easy too. And so grace and ease was the lesson for this year, I think, overall. And I talked about not working hard. So grace and ease, it's on my whiteboard. As soon as I wake up, it's one of the first things I see, grace and ease. But one of the biggest things is that I have this idea that you get an imposter. You've heard me say that before, or a starter blessing before the big blessing. And so I was interviewed by New York Times. Now, in my manifestation statement is that I will be a New York Times bestselling author. And being interviewed in the New York Times is like that imposter, or that starter accomplishment before the big one. So there are some really big things that happened this year, and some really impactful people on my list. Like I mentioned, Tom and Marissa, and Elizabeth, but Amy Porterfield, I have to give her props. Now, she was on my list last year, and she stays on the list. But she even stepped it up a notch. Last year, she was on my list because she did do a great job with her podcast. But this year, she really stepped it up. And every single episode was just fire, fire, fire. Yeah, I learned so much from her. And as she mentioned, she's an affiliate for Kajabi, which is the software that I now use for my courses, which I have been resisting because it's a big investment. But I did it. And it was one of the best decisions I made in my business. Hiring Kristen, the integrator, and then getting Kajabi. Those two big business decisions. And then me personally, finding my message. But the last lesson that I think I learned this year was to stop pushing or coaching my friends. I think I've mentioned to you before that one of my friends told me that The reason why you're probably losing friends is because they don't want to have good news all the time when they call you. They don't want to be their best when they call you. And you call for people to be their best when they're on the phone with you, or when they're in your presence. And you call for people to be upbeat. You know, they don't get a chance to be sad around you. And so people don't call you. And I was like, oh.
I disagree with that. That doesn't ring true about you to me.
I mean, the only reason that I agreed with her was because some of the people who don't call, that's what they call with. They call every single time, bad news, bad news, bad news, struggle, struggle, struggle. But it's the same story.
Yeah.
It's not like a new one.
Yeah. To me, that's the wrong diagnosis. The diagnosis it's not about you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not about me. It's that they're not. You're saying it's not that I don't allow them this. It's just that maybe they're feeling like I don't want to be down in front of Kanae.
No, I think it's a little different. So the way I see it is, if you're someone who is going to be reaching out to a friend with problems and a defeatist mentality, and that friend is someone like you who's going to show you your blind spots, that's not going to be a message they want to hear. But I've certainly approached you with some challenges, some struggles, some dark moments. I've never once felt like Kanae's not someone that I can go to if I'm not my best. And I seek out someone who calls me.
But that is the key. You just said it. You seek out. What she is saying is that I have surrounded myself with people who are not seeking out.
So yeah, so that could be fair. And then you just need to update, like your grandma said, you know, stopping with the high school friends and get some college age friends, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And friends in doctorate programs.
Yeah. I had a call today with a very close friend of mine who was actually on my influencers list as well. And she was telling me about a kind of tough conversation she was having with her boyfriend. And I illuminated an area that I saw where I'm like, oh, wow, like, I think you handled this really well. What do you think about this? And, you know, doing it slightly differently next time. And it would have been easy for me to just say, like, you know, just to support her and not illuminate that area. But she was so grateful that I did, because that's the type of relationship we have. And I would want the same thing with me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you totally. I mean, we do it here.
Yeah.
But even on our phone calls, you know, both of us are like, hey, and you know, your favorite word, I'm curious. Like, I always know I'm about to get a lesson when you're like, I'm curious to how you would. I'm like, okay, let me explore.
Yep. That's me for sure. It's cool too, because I've been seeing a guy for about a month now. And it's interesting. I've heard a quote that the relationship that you seek out is really dependent on the relationship that preceded it. So the qualities that you look for in a person might shift and change based on your last relationship and its outcome. And I really sense that with this person. And
since that he's looking at you that way, or
no, that it's working for me because I'm really appreciating qualities he has that past partners haven't been able to have, or show me or give me, and you know, just really appreciating them on an even higher level.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've had a couple moments where I'd say if there's one thing, we actually had a toast last night, and it was to honesty. And if there's one thing that's pervaded our dating, it's been brutal honesty, and just completely being ourselves and not having those pretenses and not pretending to be anything other than what you are.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple moments where we've been called on our stuff. And both of us have been really great, like express gratitude to the other person for doing that. So I feel like that's a really good thing.
That is, yes. I mean, it is nothing like being able to be yourself and not being judged by it, but just be called awareness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we're not going to be perfect in our relationships and our lifestyle. So just to have somebody to just shine a light to say, hey, I'm noticing this, you might want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in the most recent case, I was even like, actually, he apologized and he said, I'm sorry, X, Y, and Z. And I said, actually, I didn't notice that. And I didn't feel that at all. But I love, like, first of all, I love that you reached out and shared. And I like that, that you're bringing that level of self-awareness to our interactions. And so even if it didn't hurt me or impact me in any way, or even if I didn't think it was wrong, I still really valued that he cares how our interactions are and he cares how he shows up,
Absolutely. Yes, totally. I think, I mean, I just love that. Like, even if, a friendship, a relationship, dating, getting to know each other, any level that you can do that on, that is just, blessing. Yeah, because we don't always get that, we get the rules, especially when it comes to dating. It's like, act like this, be like this, do this, don't do this.
If there's anyone who's in the early stages of dating and are wondering where to seek guidance, don't seek out the rules. I would not start there.
No, they suck.
They really suck.
They get in the way.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is another vulnerability. I think that's something we've talked about a lot on these, but in, ourselves. That's just an ongoing lesson in life. Not this year. I think a lot of my friends say I have no pride. So I think I do a good job at vulnerability, but it's kind of like confidence. It's like,
I don't think of it as no pride. It's confidence. It's
to show up. Exactly. Yeah. So when you're confident enough, you don't mind being vulnerable. Kind of like Jesse, I've had those kind of moments where people are like, they're like, who are you, Forrest Gump? Like, what are you doing here? Like, even when I met Chris Gardner, he was like, are you always this aggressive? That's what he said to me. I was like, look, can I walk you to your car? Like, what? Like, I need to talk to you. I don't know if you know that the way that I met him was that I was supposed to go somewhere. That meeting got canceled. And so I was like, okay, I'm downtown, what to do? And then the university said, go to Chris Gardner's office. So I was like, okay. I parked my car and he just happened to be coming out of his office. And so I was like, oh, hello. He's like, hello, who are you here to see? I was like,
not creepy at all.
He's like, who are you here to see? And I'm like, you. He's like, me? I'm like, yeah. I'm sorry, do we have a meeting? No, but I just read your book. He was like, the book just came out on Tuesday. It don't take me long.
Wait, so I have a question for you, because I was actually cleaning out my closet the other day and I came across the postcard from that book signing where you and I met.
Oh, really?
Reporters. Yeah. So did you meet him and then go to the book signing? Was he like, come to my book signing?
No, I met him first.
Yeah.
And then he was like, actually, the book signing was just an extra. He didn't even say that. He just said, okay, you are so aggressive that you're getting on my calendar. So he walked me back into his office, introduced me to his assistant, and was like, put her on my calendar.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how, so then he and I had a meeting, and then he invited me to the group meeting.
Got it. Okay.
And so that's kind of how that, and then the book signing, I was just starting, then I just became a stalker and I just started like showing up at everything. And then he spoke at my church and I was like, okay, totally God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this particular church is where I learned all of this is manifestation and confidence and all of that. Aside from my parents, but he spoke there, and that was the second time I saw him. Like, hey, I know we already have our meeting set up, but I just want to get a few minutes of your time. And that's when he said, "Are you always this aggressive?" And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much. Yeah." Like my first words were, "You're bothering me," and not like Baba. No, it was like a whole entire sentence. You're bothering me.
Yeah.
So my confidence has been there for a very, very long time. Baby, 2 years old, whatever.
And I'm laughing because my favorite book that I made my parents read every single night to me, first of all, the cover has a little girl on a bicycle with a stuffed animal in the basket. And I still to this day love bicycling, bicycle every day, and
Yeah.
still love stuffed animals, big time. But the title of the book is called "I Can Do It by Myself," and
Mm,
that was my book. So that's like Leia also from about age 2.
awesome. Well, I think that's a great note to wrap up on. What do you think?
I love it. Owning who we are.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't think there's anybody that I didn't mention, but I mentioned the CEO training that I went to. So I do want to make sure that I say Bernie Dixon shifted my business, but also my personal life too, because she has become my face-to-face mentor. Most of the people I mentioned are
Yeah,
virtual mentors
yeah,
and face-to-face mentors. And you had me on your list, and I don't do a cool fancy graphic like you do, but I know that this year our friendship has gone to another level. So the universe makes room. Like the universe took those other people out
yeah,
to make
yeah,
room for you. Otherwise, I may not have thought that I've had room.
yeah,
Plus, my lesson on not coaching my friends, even though that's sort of our relationship, but it's a different way. And
yeah,
so I think in you becoming in my life is like teaching me, or I should say coming back or whatever, but teaching me the way to coach my friends. Coach
hmm.
those who want to be coached.
Yeah,
Yeah. Don't feed adult food to babies.
yeah. Beautiful. Well, I am grateful for you, Kanae. For people who are listening, if you have someone who's really influenced your life in 2018 or have had a big shift or turning point, share in the comments. And we will come at you with brand new episodes in the new year.
Yes. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, Leah.